Hey everybody, this is Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And I'm the other one.
Yeah, you haven't said that one before. And you're watching episode 94 of The
You got
Adventures...
something to say to me, Devin? You got something to say to me?
Watching episode
You
90...
use the same opening every single time.
But that's
so what if I use the same opening 3 times,
But
Devin?
that's the shtick, Victoria. I always say the same thing, and you say something different.
What's it to you? Fine, cut the episode. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Screw it, we'll do it live.
Yeah, he's Devin, and I'm leaving. Goodbye.
What are we talking about today, Victoria? Well, we're talking about Things Not Seen and Mortal Coil Part 2. Wow, Victoria, that's really interesting. Alright, so let's get right into it. No news. Episode 794, Things Not Seen, written by Phil Lawler. What happens in Things Not Seen, Victoria? Well, Devin, Things Not Seen starts when there's this intern, she's new at Whit's End, and her name is Renee D. Carter. I'm kind of fusing you with Elise when she describes things, and she kind of does this.
I want Elise to impersonate me.
That's like the highest honor in life.
I know. My favorite impersonation moment is when they're hitting on Lawrence by talking about past presidents.
John F. Kennedy impersonation.
Anyway, we won't get into that.
What happens in the episode?
So in this episode, what did you say already?
I just said like a sentence. Just start.
Okay. So, could you hear people calling after me when I close the door? Okay. Some people are not happy about me slamming my door. Anyway, so in this episode, there is a new employee at Whit's End. Her name is Renee. And she is a lass. She's very Scottish, and I love her.
She's very Scottish, please.
Yeah, and when I first saw her picture on the artwork, I actually saw it because she has red hair, and her red hair looks a little bit, and Connie's hair sometimes
she's grimacing very strongly in the artwork for some reason.
Red brownish, show the artwork.
Yeah,
and then she's also wearing a green shirt. So I opened the episode, I saw the artwork, and I was like, they changed Connie's design again! What did they do? That doesn't look like Connie. So, can you see the resemblance, though?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a really creepy...
I just want to know why she's grimacing so much in the art. She's like...
Yeah. She's like, ugh, Christians.
So what happens?
So in this episode, we meet a new employee called Renee, and it's her telling the story of her getting hired at Whit's End to a holographic version of the dog she used to own.
We don't know if it's holographic or if it's just like an audio program, though. We don't know if they're...
I assumed
that she could see it, but we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what the dog's name is.
Spoiler.
Spoilers! Yeah, they don't tell you that.
This episode had 2 plot twists.
Upon re-listening to it, it was kind of obvious, and I'm surprised I didn't pick up on it.
I kind of guessed it, but...
I didn't
the dog,
guess it. And so then she's not a Christian. She's very vehemently not a Christian. And so then she tells this to Whit, and he's just like, well, Connie and Eugene weren't Christians either when they started here. Wink. And she's like, yeah, leave me alone. And so...
He was like, when Connie arrived, she was a snippy, argumentative agnostic. And I was like, I heard that. He's like, but thanks to the care of people, I heard that of great, generous people.
I heard that too.
She became the snippy, argumentative Christian we know and love today. That's the best part of changing Rodney, hands down.
And so, yeah, and then Whit asks her if she wants to take a ride in the Imagination Station, and then she does, and then they pull an Isaac the Chivalrous on us, which I didn't see that coming.
And we were just talking about the Mortal Coil last week, and how I thought that this is what the plot to that episode was, so...
Yeah, and I was sitting there, and I was just like, should I tell him? Should I not tell him?
Yeah, Victoria spoiled it, and so I cut it from our previous review so it wouldn't spoil you guys. And then, fortunately, says I didn't necessarily know exactly which episode she was talking about.
Yeah, I didn't say what episode.
And so I didn't realize that was what happening, so it still surprised me at the end. So that was nice. I'm glad. Thank you for not completely ruining it, Victoria.
I wouldn't have said what episode it was. And I still feel kind
There
of...
admittedly wasn't a lot of options for what it could have been that you'd heard that I hadn't.
True. But you still didn't figure it out.
It's true. Somehow.
And
so
I was like, oh, he's going to figure it out. And you never did, and I don't know how.
I'm very grateful.
But, yeah. Anyway, so then she goes on an adventure, and she says she doesn't believe in faith. And then the adventure forces her to, and yeah, and Connie is there being awesome, Eugene's there being out of character, and Whit's there being trapped in the imagination station. So then she has to have faith that Whit knows what he's doing, and then like shut everything down, potentially hurting Whit. And then he pulls her out of the imagination station. He's like, haha, I tricked you. And then
she's like, I'm not working here.
I'm not working here after what you did.
I quit. Thank you,
I can't do a Scottish accent. You'll probably figure that out. I can do a British accent, and that's it.
A Scottish accent is a British accent, technically speaking.
Technically.
It's not English,
okay,
but it is British.
I can do an English accent. How about that?
My
trigger word
there's still
for
like
doing
80,
a poor
but
Scottish accent is doctor, because of Doctor Who.
Mine is just Scottish.
Doctor. That's like the one word I can say well-ish.
Anyways. I always think of the improv thing from The Gathering 2009, the Scottish Jeopardy with Alex Trebek and McIntosh. It was a skit that they did. It always makes me laugh. Anyway,
I love Renee.
Yeah,
She's just so amazing.
Renee D. Carter, not the subtlest of names, is a young Scottish mech-eng student at Campbell County, and she's the new intern that I have heard so much whispering about, and she's majorly stoked to be interning at Whit's End. I really like her. I hope she sticks around. Apparently she's going to. I'm really happy. So Renee...
She's in more than one episode.
Yes, I know.
Yep.
Renee D. Carter is a reference to this handsome gentleman, René Descartes, who is one of the most famous mathematicians and philosophers in history. He is the one after whom our Cartesian coordinate system is named, mathematically. And philosophically, the most famous postulate he ever created was, I think, therefore I am, which in Latin is cogito ergo sum, and the first word of that, cogito, is the name of her dog in the episode.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, okay, I said she's in more than one episode, which lots of people probably already know because they probably listened to the episode. So it's kind of obvious what the other episode she's in is. Yeah. Because there's like
only one
choice.
Possibility.
So it's not a spoiler if I say what other episode she's in. So I'm really glad that she's not just a one-shot character.
Because that would make no sense.
Because she's really cool. And she could possibly have been a one-shot character. She's in The Boat People, and that's a two-parter, so she's going to be in at least 3 episodes. And, like, the nice thing is, like I said, she's in more than one episode. She's an intern at Whit's End, and she could have only been in 1. Why do I say this? Because Lindsay was an intern at Whit's End, and she was only in 1 episode.
Yeah, but she left at the end of the episode.
Yeah, but she was there for, like, a while.
That's true. She was there for... There's a lot of time that spanned during that episode.
Yeah, so this episode is Best of Enemies.
I mean, there's also the fact that Lindsay didn't live in Odyssey. Like, she moved there for what was supposed to be a temporary internship, whereas Renee is studying in Campbell County. So,
yeah.
I mean, it does make sense. But I see what you mean. It's a good point.
Mm-hmm. So,
I always forget about Lindsay.
I really hope that she's not just an OAC character. But yeah, I'm worried that she might be.
In the thing online, so at the very end of the video documentary, Bob said, and I quote, "We're going to hear more from Renee in future episodes, right here in the club." So I'm not sure if that does mean that she's going to only ever appear in the OAC, because that makes no sense whatsoever. Especially since this episode.
See, that's why a couple episodes ago in the Oddcast, I was asking where this season of the OAC takes place. Because it's going to be weird if Renee never appears in any of the normal
Yeah, because I mean,
episodes.
the OAC has always been extremely vague into how it fits into the AIO timeline, and they made it clear, as we talked about recently, that this episode was supposed to be in album 60, which makes me think that Renee was meant to be in there, and so would be in regular episodes. So I feel like it's a fairly safe assumption that she'll show up in regular episodes.
I just feel like it's going to be a little bit weird for people who don't listen to
she won't have an intro, yeah.
Because all of a sudden they're going to be like, okay, oh, Renee, our intern. It's going to be like Olivia's best friend.
It's
where it's
Zoe.
like, oh yeah, Olivia's best friend. I know her. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, she's the girl Jay has a crush on. She's been in so many episodes.
Yeah.
And...
So back to the name thing. So I caught Renee immediately. I didn't catch Cogito, partially because I didn't know how it was spelled. For most of the episode, I thought it was a cutesy nicknaming from Corgi, since he seemed to be a small dog. But no, like I said, it's Cogito, a la cogito ergo sum. I think therefore I am, which was Descartes' most famous postulate. It makes sense because it says on the OAC that Phil Lawler was the name who named both of them. And Phil Lawler does have a degree in philosophy, so...
You know what bothered me so much?
What?
Okay, Connie only had mentioned Kitty for like one episode. What happened to Kitty?
Died.
Because in Best of Enemies, she mentions Kitty, not by name, but I'm pretty sure she's talking about Kitty.
Yeah, I know.
Where she said, like, I had a dog once and he chewed through a table leg.
Yeah, I know.
And that's the only mention we ever got of Connie having a dog.
That's why he died, Victoria.
Did she have Kitty for like a week?
Probably.
Like she wrote
he
whoever
grew very quickly. It was like Clifford the Big Red Dog kind of thing.
And yeah, Kitty's like a snake, just gets bigger and shape forms around whatever it eats. So then he shaped like a table because he eats a table.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of Le Petit Prince.
Your mouth just unhinged and you ate all of it.
So as far, I thought it was
rather
rather clever than thinking about it, that as far as Descartes-related words go, cogito makes a lot of sense, given that it shares our Latin root for cognition, which underlies Renee's principles of belief in the episode. So well done, Phil, because it's like cognition, like needing to know and understand things in order to believe in them, and that's what Renee's thing was all about in the episode. That's what her dog's named after. I'm like,
High five for symbolism through names.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for that.
So, yeah, back to the beginning of the episode, basically, then.
Is it just me, or did you think that Eugene was out of character-ish in this?
I didn't think so. Not enough to think that, oh, this must be an Imagination Station episode.
Like, I didn't think it was an Imagination Station.
I mean, it was very clear that Connie and Eugene here... What I thought, honestly, was
I thought, like, they felt like their personalities from really early on in Odyssey.
Well, they were very clearly set up in, like, in clear-cut opposition to each other in the way they were treating her.
Like, I can understand it was done that way for the program, but it kind of felt like that's how Whit sees them, and he sees them as little cardboard cutouts, like how they were in, like, album 23 around there.
Well, no, because that's how Whit needed to be them to be, and it's like, Renee doesn't know the difference. She's never met him.
True.
But, in the episode, when we didn't know it was the Imagination Station, I assumed that they were acting so, like, cardboard cutout perfect plot-wise, because Whit had told them, and this was all part of his plan to teach her about faith.
Oh.
And I thought he'd just been like,
I
hey,
thought
Connie.
Eugene was just... Connie didn't bother me. It was just Eugene. He was so much more argumentative.
He was really
than
paranoid.
He's been in a long time.
Which I thought about.
I mean, like, it wasn't... I could see him being like that because he was like that a lot before he became a Christian, like around those episodes. But he isn't really like that as much anymore.
Yeah, I thought, like, wow, Eugene was incredibly suspicious real fast. But then I was like, I guess that is kind of understandable, especially given his past involvement with the Novacom saga and the history of people doing things they shouldn't with the Imagination Station. Like,
I can understand them acting that way around the Imagination Station, but in general, it just felt a little off.
Because I just kept on thinking about, like, the beginning of Novacom, and it's like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll let this telephone lady up into Whit's office, and then she installed a self-destructing modem to tap into their computer system.
Eugene wasn't there for that.
No, but it's still something that has happened, and the events of that led to him having to spend a long time running for his life around the world.
And losing his memory. I wonder what would have happened if Katrina wasn't a Christian. Just sorry.
So anyways, back again to the beginning of the episode. We talked about it earlier, but I I'm curious to hear more about these generators specifically designated to the imagination station that Whit mentioned. But I guess that does make sense based on what Whit was saying about the need for uninterrupted power flow, which I will refrain from calling UPF, since that's confusing in this context, since it's the same initials as Universal Press Foundation. And when one door closes, that was like the whole thing was the proper UPF power supply for the imagination station.
Damn it.
Yeah.
You know what would work instead of having to charge like a big battery and stuff like that?
I don't know, Victoria, what would work instead of having to charge like a big battery like that or something?
If they had a crank, they could crank it.
Blasphemer!
They had a crank and they
Purge
can
your
like
memories.
use it to film things.
Purge your
And
memories.
it can be a power source and it can store up all the power and it can call it an Angelic.
Man, I'm gonna have to turn the audio down on that part. I really liked how Renee talking in her thing. She's like, no, Cog, the kill switch doesn't actually kill anyone. And I'm like, well, Miss Carter, I would direct you to the other part of this review episode.
The Mortal Coil. I thought the kill switch sounded a lot like applesauce.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of confusing whether they were talking about the emergency shutoff button or not. But I guess the kill switch is for all of Wit's End, not just the imagination station. It's like the master breaker.
Applesauce shut off everything.
Well, yeah, but it's not designed to shut everything down. The kill switch is like the master breaker.
Is it like the same kind of thing as if you don't input the password for applesauce?
No, because
it sounds like the same principle, basically.
No, the kill switch is just like cut the power to the building and everything will just die down. Applesauce, even ignoring like what its actual purpose was, when it shut everything down, it put everything in lockdown and locked you out because it assumed someone was trying to hack into the building.
Oh,
this just cut the power. You'd be able to turn it back on again. The problem was they're worried about data that wouldn't be saved because they would turn everything off without saving what Whit was doing.
See, I thought it was like gonna hurt Whit.
Yeah, it shouldn't.
I started getting suspicious when he called Renee before he called Connie and Eugene. At first, I thought it was like Whit trying to prove a point.
Well, that's why I thought, because I still thought all this was real.
I didn't think he was. I thought he was actually in danger though. And he was like, oh, I'm in danger. I should use it as a lesson for Renee instead of calling Eugene and Connie first. And I was like, what are you doing? The doctors already hate
I was going to say, Dr. Graham's ripping her hair out right now.
So, yeah.
Doctors hate him. Speaking of Whit on...
Dermatologists hate him.
Yeah. All doctors hate him.
And every other kind of doctor, too.
It's not wait, that hasn't happened yet.
I love that one thing where it's like, dermatologists hate him, not because of his skin, just because he's a jerk.
Yeah. I assume that Whit's negligence to mention Renee, like I was saying, this is what I figured, that in terms of Connie and Eugene not knowing who she was, I figured that either A, Whit actually didn't tell them about her because it was an object lesson about faith and she has to try and prove herself. And that does seem like a bit of a cruel thing to do to someone on their first day of work. Or the other option was that because of the way that Connie and Eugene were acting, like you pointed out, that they were in on the thing the whole time in the same ways that she has to try and prove herself and be like, you need to have faith that I work here.
I think one could argue that it's crueler because it wasn't even her first day of work.
Yeah, I know.
It was still the interview.
I know! But,
So, like, if he offered me the job and he put me through all that and he's like, so you want the job? I'd be like, no! And then I would leave.
Spend the rest of my life in therapy because now I have issues with unreality and I don't know if I'm still trapped in virtual reality or what's real and fake anymore.
It's so messed up.
It's
oh my
literally,
God.
She has psychosis now is what
like,
is happening.
It's like the end of that episode of Rick and Morty where the M. Night Shyamalan where after the post-credit scene, he goes up to Morty because he doesn't know if it's the real Morty. He's really nice. And you're like, oh, he's emotional because he thought he was with the real one. And it turned out to be a hologram. And then he starts, like, he has a blade at Morty's throat. And he's like, are you the real one? And stuff. So, yeah. No, she scarred her life. Thank you, Whit.
So,
basically, Connie could be in the imagination station still throughout all of this. So it's Renee for the rest of the series is in the imagination station of Connie being in the inspiration station of Whit being in the imagination station.
It's like the Truman Show.
I watched The Truman Show a couple nights ago.
Huh.
Yeah, it was so... I thought it was going to be a comedy, because someone told me it was a comedy, and I, like, cried twice, and it wasn't funny.
This talk of being trapped in the imagination station without realizing it reminds me of what I was talking about last time on the Mortal Coil, and something I thought of to add to that, but I guess I'll talk about that when we get to that review next. I feel like Whit must really love the idea of having Renee's familiar accent around, because it must make him feel at home.
That's what I thought. I was actually wondering if he was biased and he hired her because she was Scottish, but...
When Whit showed her the computer room immediately, I was like, oh man, she's going to use applesauce, she's going to kill Whit's End. This is what happens when you show an employee where the computer room is on the first day. And then she actually did end up killing Whit's End in the end.
Do you ever wonder if Whit hangs around people because they remind him of certain other people? Like, think about it. He hung around with Mary because and did
Jenny.
all the stuff because she reminded him of Jenny. And then we have, like, I totally forgot her name for some reason. We're talking about her right now. Oh my gosh. Renee. Yeah, how did that happen? So he has Renee, and he's like, oh, please, call me John. He doesn't say that, but that would make me super emotional if he did.
Call me John Avery.
Who might remind him of his mom, which would be really weird. So I'm going to say Fiona. And we have Connie, who I think it's pretty blatant that he is reminded of Jana through Connie because of how he treats her. And have you ever thought about maybe the fact
that Eugene reminds him of himself?
No, I was going to say Eugene reminds him of Jerry, maybe.
I don't think so.
I don't. That one's, like, super stretching it because I couldn't think of anyone. But, yeah, Whit's like, I gathered this substitute family because all of mine are dead. And then Jana's just like, hey, Dad, I'm over here. And he's like, oh, I can't hear you.
I'm still alive. Quit telling everyone I'm dead.
And then Jenny, like, his granddaughter's like, hey, Grandpa, can I be in the show again? And he's like, no, you're forbidden. Stay out.
Wait till album 70.
I want Jenny to come back.
So, yeah, all of a sudden, and this is what, I didn't talk about it when we were just talking about the Imagination Station in the book review, but it's the same thing like Isaac the Chivalrous, where when Whit has someone inside the Imagination Station without them knowing it, he has them shut it down by actually hitting the button. So that's why I was wondering about Isaac the Chivalrous, what button he hit. Because in this one, she hits the kill switch, which causes her to turn off her own program that she's in. So it's like,
tricky. That tricky.
So,
see, if we know for future reference, if he's like, hit the button, that means the rest of the episode isn't happening.
It's funny because, I didn't figure out what was going on, fortunately, despite your spoilers.
I'm sorry.
As she hit the kill switch...
Are you ever going to forgive me for that? Because you keep on bringing it up. You said you forgave me, but you keep on mentioning it.
I do forgive you. I'm just... Because I'm going through my notes, I'm trying to explain my thought process as I got these things. So
you sound really bitter the way
I'm not
you're
bitter.
saying
I'm
it.
not actually bitter and embittered about it. As she hit the kill switch, you start hearing like this... like powering down noises, and it goes on for a long time, and I was like, man, Whit's End must eat an unimaginable amounts of power for it to make that much noise shutting down. And it wasn't until the actual like Imagination Station doors open on, I was suddenly like, oh, I get it. I was like, that's why it made so much noise, because it wasn't the shop shutting down, it was the Imagination Station shutting down, and she's inside it. I'm like, man, I thought Whit was going to die in the Imagination Station twice in their same review episode. What are the odds?
I thought he was going to get injured in it or something, and I was like, it's so ironic we're reviewing the Mortal Coil of this, except for I didn't know that at the time when I first heard it.
All I could think of was Lucy in the battle, when it blew up with her inside.
And Richard Maxwell charges in, and Renee's like, who are you?
Right at the end, I thought that the power surge was all a trick/object lesson that Whit had set up about faith and proof, but even then I still didn't think it wasn't actually happening in the material plane. This episode was like...
yeah, I thought he was actually going to get hurt, and like I said before, he was just using it as an object lesson and not calling Connie and Eugene on purpose, and I'm like, that's a really dumb idea.
Yeah, and like I said before, I love how Whit is only now... taken a new employee's first day to make them... It's only taken that long to make them validly paranoid for just that their whole reality is still inside a simulation. GG, Whit.
Yeah, it's a good thing the imagination station didn't exist on Connie and Eugene's first days. Who knows
It
what would
really
have
puts him
happened.
through the ringer, doesn't he?
I really liked how this had an element in common with Groundhog Day, which we talked about in. Did we ever review Groundhog Day? No, we didn't in this. We
We
reviewed it with
reviewed it for the
Austin
blogcast.
Papa. Yeah. I think we might have talked about it in Groundhog Day. In that review. If we didn't, I feel like we might have talked about it at least once in one of the Oddcast episodes. How Barrett programmed the adventure so that Connie is never in the room when Harry's in the room and wants to go talk to Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's always like, oh, she drops the cake, she has to go get a new one, or some glass breaks and she has to go like clean up the glass or something like that. Mm-hmm. She's always out of the room when she needs to be in the room because she could stop it.
Yeah.
And they do the same thing in this, if you notice that. Right after Whit calls Renee, and Renee's like, oh my gosh, talk to Mr. Whittaker. And I don't even know what voice I just did. I'm so sorry.
It was a good Scottish. Like a good 65% Scottish there.
Yeah, thank you. And so then she tries to give the phone to Connie, and then Connie drops it into the blender or something like that. And it was just like the same kind of thing where it's like, oops, this happened, and now I can't do it. And everyone's like playing so deeply on Connie's clumsiness. I want her to go in some of these adventures and just like, or walk past the control panel and see how people are like treating her clumsiness. She's like, hey, I'm insulted.
I see where you're going with this now. That might be
true, and I might do stuff like that, but I'm still insulted.
Yeah. I may be clumsy, and I might break things sometimes and say the wrong thing, but I forget where I was going with this point.
And then she just walks away.
Yeah. So the video documentary, it was actually a rather fun one. I quite enjoyed it.
I want Eugene to be watching. He's like, the clumsy and forgetful person. I heard that we know and love today.
So the doc starts off with Nathan subjecting Bob to a series of tests and obstacles while blindfolded to test his trust and faith in the team that they're not going to screw him over. This includes sticking his hands into bowls of unknown sticky substances to identify them. It was basically like a whole bunch of on-the-spot redemption challenges. So Bob is continually criticized by the crew because they like give him a bowl and he's just kind of like tapping it with his fingertips because he's scared, and he keeps on getting criticized by the crew for not sticking his hands in vigorously enough. So they keep on coming over to like grab his hands and stuff them in and mush them around and lotion and baby oil and more macaroni. Then he drives a car blindfolded with a big...
This isn't like on the spot. If it was on the spot, it would be worse. Wait, did you say a car blindfolded?
He drives a car blindfolded with a "do not try this at home" flashing on the screen. The ending...
Oh my gosh, are they trying to kill him?
At least the ending shot of it was definitely someone with their eyes open because he like drifted around a corner. I'm like, he's clearly not doing that blindfolded, but...
Okay, it wasn't him.
And then we move... Well, some of it might have. I don't know.
But... No, that's such a bit... They wouldn't do something like that on the spot.
And then we move from touching gushy things in bowls to eating gushy things in bowl. And these are a little...
Is this their way of telling him that they want him to leave the company?
They're
like, if we subject him to enough bad things, maybe he'll quit and we won't have to fire him.
These ones were a little more appetizing than the baby oil. Bob is still reticent about this one, and so at one point Jonathan Crow comes over and like takes Bob's spoon hand in his hand and helps like feed him like a baby, and Bob's like...
Aw, that's so
Bob's
cute.
swatting him away with his blindfold on. It was really funny. A jovial time was had by all. There was no applesauce, in which I was disappointed. And then Bob goes down the Abednego slide and rides a bike with the blindfold on.
Oh my gosh, I can't ride a bike with a blindfold on.
I know, he's like going on a dirt road downhill, and the crew's like running behind him with a camera and a boom mic. They're like, just keep going. He's like, he yells, how long do I have to keep going like this? And someone yells, well, you won't be going for very long at this rate, like that, as he's like careening downhill.
Okay, I feel like they subject people named Bob at that company to so many horrible things, especially involving cars. Like Bob Hoos and I ruined my car working on this show. I love how bitter he sounds.
It's great. Does anyone want to buy a slightly mangled 90-something Chevy something? So there's a intermissionary segment and where Nathan is talking about Renee and stuff. I really liked how when he said Renee's name, he doesn't say Renee D. Carter, like he doesn't pronounce the D as a regular English letter. He says Renee D. Carter. So he's basically saying Renee Descartes, like dropping any possible subtlety to the blatant math history pun. So they bring in a mech engineer, comes by to talk about what he does. I was really hoping they get a lady, because Renee, and since ladies in STEM are so underrepresented. But the guy they got was Nathan's brother, so it justifiably makes sense, I guess.
Unless he hates his brother.
That's true. Well, I'll say this. We all know two of Nathan's brothers' names because he put them into the triangle as Whit's friends who go to watch Jenny's lecture, Landon and Nolan. This was Bryson Hubler, so he was the brother who didn't get put into an episode. Yeah, I know. So who knows? But as Bryson goes into talking about what he's working on after explaining mech eng in general, the screen flashed a countdown warning for big words in this many seconds. Look out! And I like to point out that's he barely used large words. I think the longest word he used was deuterium, but the next longest word was advanced. And advanced is not a like. There was probably more complicated stuff that he said in the shorter words since he was abbreviating a bunch of stuff. It's the same fallacy that annoyed me just a little bit in Fast As You Can. As much as I love that episode, length does not equal linguistic complexity. Because Eugene had tons of normal lay words that he couldn't use with his 2-syllable limit, and plenty of complex words that he could use. And there's at least one instance I know of in that episode where Eugene broke his fast unintentionally, because he said the word idea. Idea is 3 syllables. It's technically breaking his fast. It's not at all a hard sciencey word. It's the 277th most common word in the English language, which is very common.
He could have said point.
Sorry?
He could have said point instead of idea.
So the point here is that just because a word has a lot of syllables does not mean that it's hard. I mean, idea is only 4 letters, but it breaks that. Yes?
Can I just say, when you were just talking, that was horrifying because as soon as you started quoting the computer, your reverb started going, and then it sounded like when people try and like voice the devil or something like that, and they have like it going really deep, and they have like voices laying over it, and then it also sounded like a robot talking at the same time.
Something's really wrong with your computer.
All at once, and it was like, and it was the scariest thing.
When I was saying what part?
When you say like, the robot or the computer said, and then everything you said the computer said in your point, that was all randomly in the freaky computer voice, and then as soon as you stopped...
When did I mention a computer?
Okay, you were quoting something, like a robot or something.
I didn't quote anything.
Okay, what were you just talking about before you started, like, your last point, before this one?
Before this one?
Yeah.
That it was Nathan's brother, and then I said that long words don't equal hard words.
Okay, you're talking about, like, you mentioned a computer or something.
I don't think so.
And then as soon as you mentioned it, it started going in the freaky voice, and as soon as you stopped mentioning it, it went back to your normal voice.
Anyways,
and it was horrifying.
Moving on. Bryson also speculates for, like, a good 20 seconds on how the imagination station works, and his speculations are basically identical to our theorizations. That video, linked below, from way back in the day.
It hits you in the head with a hammer.
Exactly, yeah. He talks about, like, I would imagine that it scans and guides/manipulates neurotransmissions and stuff like that, and it's, you know, it's all the same stuff that we said, so it's canon. And then they get Bob to crush something tasty in his hand. I don't know. I thought it was an egg at first, but I guess it wasn't. It's something tasty and probably gushy, and he holds his hand through a fence, and dogs are coming and trying to, like, lick it through his fingers and stuff, and the dogs are,
Those monsters feeding dogs brought eggs.
The dogs are start playfully biting his hands as he remains visually incapacitated. And then they give a clip from the recording of Renee's interview with Whit as she talks about mech eng and math, which I guess I should probably clarify.
Does this actor look anything like her character?
Not really, no. You can Google her if you want.
What does she look
Amy
like?
Pemberton is her name. Mech eng is mechanical engineering, just in case that wasn't clear to people who don't have friends who are in mech eng. And then Bob is...
What's her name?
Amy Pemberton. It comes up pretty soon, as she is, you know, she's up there. I was actually going to talk about that relatively soon.
Oh, she's really pretty.
Amy Pemberton is welcome to the showcast as Renee. She is most well known for her role as Gideon in DC's relatively new TV show, Legends of Tomorrow, and she was also in Uncharted 4 and in the Game of Thrones Telltale game, which is pretty cool.
I haven't seen any of those things.
I see people post lots of gift sets from Legends of Tomorrow because it just like finished its first season or something like that.
I know nothing about Legends of Tomorrow. I've never heard
I know
of that
it's DC and it has Rory.
I don't know anything about Game of Thrones.
It has Rory in it.
And I don't know anything about Uncharted.
Bob is ziplining now and sitting on an ATV in the back of a truck. Presumably he's thinking that he's driving it, even though it's just like strapped in a truck bed and driving around. But
is he still wearing a blindfold? Yes. What is wrong with you people?
I know, they just kept him doing more things, and I was like, yikes, this is just getting weird. Like, he's ziplining with a blindfold on.
It sounds a lot like America's Funniest Home Videos, where you start watching it, and you're like, this is funny, and then after 1 minute in, you're like, this is actually quite horrifying. I feel very bad for everyone involved.
So, what haven't I talked about yet? In the web quest, there was a thing where they're talking about the need for faith. So they set up this metaphor, which turns out to be about, like, what heaven is like. But before they explain what the metaphor is, they postulate receiving a telegram from a theretofore unknown uncle who invites you to a party at his billionaire estate so he can divide his fortune between you and your relatives. And while I do get the spiritual parallel once I knew what it was about, I'm like, this setup sounds very much like a cross between The Most Dangerous Game and the Nigerian Prince email scam, and I probably would not go either to this. It's like, hello, I'm your uncle that I've never heard of. Come to my billionaire estate so I can give you all my money. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that.
No.
They're like, that's what heaven's like. And I'm like, not selling it, guys.
No. What was I gonna say? I think one of the reasons I really loved Renee so much is because I'm going to put her in the 3 most unique characters we've had on Odyssey, 4 character group that I have. For the 4 most unique female characters we've had in the run of Odyssey. First one, chronologically. Let's see if you can guess who any of them are, Devin. One of them's Renee.
Connie?
No.
Katrina.
No.
Lucy. Donna.
No.
Fiona Donneral.
No. I mean, personality is very different from everyone else that we usually come across in Odyssey.
The queen from Patrick, A Heart of Fire?
Okay, so they're all modern-day people in Odyssey. So one is Renee. One is, not Imagination Station Adventures.
Yeah, I got
that. By modern
real
day,
people.
I mean people you'd meet in Odyssey.
Real modern people.
One is KLA. One is Kelly. She's quite a unique character. Mm-hmm. One is, I'm surprised you didn't get this one. One is Jules.
Ooh, yeah, like Jules.
And the other one is, I just re-listened to this episode because I really
Buck Oliver.
Wanted to. No, it's a female.
Yeah, but you would totally put him in there anyways. Or Jared.
No, I wouldn't. No. One, I re-listened to this episode the other day, this 2-parter, because I like to think that she's actually Eugene's first kiss.
Margaret
Can you figure out who it
Hoffmeyer?
is?
That's not a 2-parter. Oh, Tammy Smith-Hammer.
You mean Kelly? Or not Kelly, you mean
Kelsey.
Lindsay?
Kelsey Smith-Hammer.
Kelsey. Yeah, Kelsey. Tammy's her little,
when you said that, I was like, oh, wait.
I hope that's not Eugene's first kiss.
Smith-Hammer.
I was trying to re-listen to the episode. I was thinking, I could have definitely seen him and Kelsey maybe being a thing if it weren't for Katrina being around in that time period. Also, I realized while I was thinking about it that Eugene has a type.
Does he now?
He goes for blondes.
With
have you ever thought about that?
Gray dead eyes. I mean,
is
that why he went for Connie and I
in A Day in the Life, and then there's Katrina.
Yeah, I guess so.
The only 2 girls he's ever pursued in the run of Odyssey have both been blonde.
What about Margaret Hoffmeyer?
We don't know Margaret Hoffmeyer. I think that because of that, Kelsey and Margaret are both blondes.
So I have one more point, which is in the web quest they always give a page with 7 or so discussion questions for you to talk about with your parents. I'll give him to you, Victoria. You can talk about him with Mom and Dad if you want.
Okay.
I thought there's one really funny one I had to mention, and it asks...
Is it, have you killed anybody?
Sorry?
Is it, like, involving killing people?
It doesn't, no. It asks if you were surprised that Whit would hire an intern who wasn't a Christian. And I was like,
no.
Whit has basically never hired Christians. When they were hired...
I was thinking about that. The only
hired,
person he's ever hired who is a Christian, and I'm not including, like, Tom or Bernard or any of those guys, or Jack or Jason, is... What's-her-face, and she wasn't really an
Julie
employee.
Myers?
There's that lady who
Julie
works
Myers?
there in the first couple albums.
Julie Myers?
No. No. Oh, yeah, Julie. Yeah, she's a Christian. No, there's that lady who, like, in the first couple episodes of Odyssey, she would, like... I think she mostly volunteered, though.
Oh, yeah. What's-her-face?
Yeah.
She was, like... It was a... Oh, Mary and Joseph's. Yeah, I was like, it's a bad Christmas pun. Yeah, Mary and Joseph.
So, yeah.
But did she work at Whit's End? I thought she was just his friend.
No, there was, like, the lady who everyone thinks he's dating.
Oh, Emma Douglas.
Yeah, Emma Douglas. She, like, did some work at Whit's End, I think.
That's true. They said that in a Code of Honor.
Her, and then, I guess, Julie... And then we don't know if Jimmy was a Christian or not.
Yeah, we don't know.
So
he's
maybe
barely
Jimmy.
canon, so...
But you have, like... we have
Connie
not
wasn't
a Christian.
Eugene wasn't
not
a Christian.
Nick,
Katrina wasn't a Christian.
Not a Christian.
Nick,
Katrina, not a Christian. She worked there for, like, 2 hours, and then she quit.
Aubrey Shepard, not a Christian.
Aubrey, not a Christian. Anyone else?
Those were the 5 I came up with. But yeah, they're like, were you surprised Whit hired an intern who wasn't a Christian? I'm like, when has he ever hired an intern who was a Christian? Barely, you know.
So
I was like, what are they playing at here? It also asks if it's wise to have Renee, if it says, do you think it's wise for Whit to have Renee working on faith-based imagination station programs? Which made me just laugh because I started thinking about Eugene's Bible room display about the Spanish Inquisition, that they then had to keep everyone out of the Bible room and cover it with a tarp. Because it's scaring the kids so much.
Was that in Connie Part 2?
I think so, yeah. When she gets back, they're like, oh yeah, we can't go in the Bible room. Eugene made a display about the Spanish Inquisition. All these kids are scared to go in there.
What is the Spanish Inquisition?
It was like the time when one of those periods where the church was like, we're going to go around, and if we're just going to, like, kill a bunch of random people because we think that they're not Christian enough, and, like, you're a witch, you're a witch, you're a witch, burn them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because the famous quote, no one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah,
and
it was one of those periods where it's just, like, people going around and just, like, burning people at the stake willy-nilly.
Is that from Monty Python?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway.
So, overall, final thoughts.
I really love Renee. I can't wait to see more of her.
Yeah. She's a great character. I'm really excited to see more from her. I'm so happy that they added her. She has so much potential. My goodness. She's kind of like a little... Like she has a lot of like similarities with Eugene. Yeah. She's like Connie and Eugene put together in the new era and stuff like that. Because I was thinking, it's been a long time since we've had, like, a new employee at Whit's End, especially one who's not a Christian, and we can kind of, like, follow and see how their experiences are affected through being at Whit's End and stuff like that. Oh, yeah.
What about Lindsay? Is she a Christian? We don't know.
Because that's always kind of been...
Let's assume no, so that's 7.
There's been a relatively, like, steady kind of thing through the series, because, I mean, after all, that's why Connie was originally created as a character. As many of you probably know, they had that guy from New York that they hired as a consultant at the beginning of the show, and he's like, you need to create an antagonist character. You need some...
I always forget that Connie was supposed to be an antagonist. And
I mean, a
soft
antagonist.
Yeah,
they're like, you need some teenager to come in, so they're like, she's a little bit older, so the kids kind of look up to her, but she's not going to buy what you're saying. She's not going to, like, be in all this stuff. And then...
now Connie's in her 30s.
And then, and then Connie became a Christian in the exact same episode that they introduced Eugene, and then his whole thing with that went on for 22 albums. And then, they brought in Nick, they brought in Aubrey, and so, like, it's been for most of the show.
Nick never became a Christian, though, and I found that
true.
interesting.
Not in the audio series.
Did he become a Christian?
Well, there was
something else?
There was the thing we talked about it recently in the BGTO where it happened in the Leap of Faith version of the Clubhouse magazine story.
Oh, I have to read that.
But we know if you can. I don't think it's online. They just talk about it in the official guide, and I talked about it in the BGTO in terms of like how canon or Clubhouse magazine stories. But we know that didn't happen in canon then, at least, because
Wouldn't basically like if you go between all the different mediums. He has, like, a farm's worth of animals.
It's true.
My goodness.
Where do they all go? Maybe they all died in the fire. Who knows?
Yeah, there's that person in the YouTube comments, and they're like, they all died in the fire. And I was like, this is why I don't read YouTube comments.
Yeah, anyways. So it's nice that, because most of the show is most of it's covered by that kind of thing, having at least one employee like that. And it kind of helps us have a continual sense of, like, developing. And these characters are all different, you know. The journey of Aubrey is massively different from Eugene's, which is massively different than Connie's. And so it's interesting because it gives us new perspective, new ways to learn and think about things, especially in terms of apologetics, since that's what comes up a lot when it comes to, you know, ministering and explaining the stuff to someone.
We re-listened to The Time Has Come, and I got so emotional at the end. I almost started crying, which is weird because I've never, like, cried at that episode before, but I was just thinking, like, if I was Connie, I would be, like, in tears, hardcore. My goodness, I would be crying so much.
I think someone
crying.
I think someone might be making brownies or chocolate cake.
Give me some. This is why I need to hurry on down so I can get pastries.
Victoria's going to be here soon, and we can record together.
Which means we're going to be recording in person together.
It's very exciting. Yeah, for all the free time you'll have to keep being in university.
While I move in.
And all that stuff, yeah.
We'll probably, I don't know for sure yet, but we'll probably record in your house.
Probably.
Because I don't know how loud I'm allowed being in my house. Yeah. And I yell a lot.
You do yell a lot.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts to talk about? I was shocked that there was the plot twist of the Imagination Station. And then we got another plot twist with Cogito. Oh, I didn't read.
Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about Cog a little bit.
I missed my point with that. What was I gonna say? I really liked the twist. It was so sad, and like I said, I kind of predicted it because when she was talking about someone who died, my first thought was about her dog. But I'm like, I guess her dog is alive because we heard from it. I was like, maybe she had another dog and that died, and this is her new dog. But my first instinct was that it was a dog, not a person. That was the one.
See, I was thinking it was like her parents, like one of her parents, or like an aunt or an uncle or a best friend. And then I find out it's her dog, and I'm like, lady, dogs die. I know it's sad,
Victoria.
But seriously, get over it. And I felt so harsh, but I stand by what I say. And
when she started,
she's like, I'm gonna not be a Christian if my dog dies. And I'm like, why would you base a decision off of that?
When she's like, oh fine, I'll sing you one verse, or just the chorus, and then she's singing Jesus Loves Me, and I'm like, oh, that's weird that even though she's so bitter, she'd still sing it. And I'm like, wait, but she's singing, but shouldn't this be the dog that died then? And then she's like, computer and cogito program, and I was like, no!
Your entire footage just turned orange. It turned like sepia toned. It was like Wizard of Oz dramatic.
That's how I feel.
You feel sepia toned?
Yeah, like Wooten talked about in album 58 or whenever.
So.
Or no, it was the OAC. Was that the launch? I think that was the launch.
I can't remember what you're talking about.
When Wooten was, gushing about how much he loved Sepia Tone. Yeah, I believe it was the launch part one.
I love Sepia Tone too.
So yeah, it was a great episode. Renee is a fantastic character. I can't wait to hear more of her. This episode tricked me with plot twists twice, which is very impressive for a one-parter.
This episode made me realize... just me listening to The Time Has Come made me realize that Eugene has been a Christian for over half of the show, which is crazy to think about. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just me, but it...
Because he has such a long, meandering journey to faith.
It's a lot like...
It just makes you realize how long Adventure in Odyssey is.
Yeah, if something doesn't happen for a long time in the beginning of a series, I feel like you don't really think about how long it's been going on for the rest. Like, people still consider Wash to be a new character in RVB, even though he's been there for over half of this series. So, yeah. It's like considering Wooten to be a new character. It's weird. In my brain, Eugene hasn't been a Christian for a long time, but Wooten's not a new character.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I do consider Eugene to be a Christian for a long time.
I do too, but I feel like it hasn't been as long as it has been, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I'm going to give this episode 4.8 out of 5. It wasn't like the best thing ever, but it was really, really good. It was a great jumping off point with a great original character.
I'd say it's a good first episode for Renee.
Yeah.
We already know a lot about her, so that's always nice for a new character that's going to stick around.
If there's anything we know about Whit, it's that he is an absolutely cunning interrogator when it comes to job interviews. Do you think he was just going to give her like a really nice program, but he's like, oh, you don't believe in faith? I'll make you believe in faith. That was the other thing I forgot.
I think he did it on purpose, just because she said that.
After we realized, like, wait, this is still the first day, which means that she's still in the program that Whit sent her to right after her job interview, right? Like, he had the interview and he's like, here, we'll take you upstairs, you can try the imagination station. So how did he have time to program all of this if she went into the imagination station directly after their first conversation about faith? Was he, like, actively patching it into the program while she was inside the Bible part of it?
I hope
and
so.
He's, like, doing, like, a live active patch as it's happening? Because that seems really dangerous, to be honest.
Jason in Soaplessly Devoted.
That's exactly what I thought of. So, yeah. I also thought maybe Whit and Jason had, like, an accidental dilemma telepathy thing, where Whit's like, Jason, I need you to go up and program this right now. I'll stall her for a couple more minutes.
He's like, Dad, wait, give me 5 more minutes. My soap's almost over. And Whit's like, no, I missed the new episode because of the review.
Exactly. Yeah, so
not review,
4.8 for me. And you?
I think I'll give it 4.6. Just because the stuff with Eugene kind of
respectable
me a little bit.
So
he just felt a
92%.
little bit regressed in how he was acting. I found it understandable that he'd act this way. Like, I couldn't, like, it didn't feel like it was a completely different character. It still felt like Eugene.
Mm.
But like I said, it felt like something he was more likely to do at a younger age than where he currently is. I feel like he would have been more, like, accepting. He would have still been a little bit confused and asked some questions, but I feel like he would have taken it a lot better than he did.
Yeah.
And I understand that this is the program, and you do have a good point for, like, oh, she's never met them, so she wouldn't have thought about it at all.
Whit could have written them however he wanted, honestly.
He could have written them as dating or something like that.
I hope that Renee has, like, this kind of, she can't get rid of, like, this subconscious chip on her shoulder towards Eugene because of the program, and he has no idea why. Kind of like when people have, like, a dream about someone where they're, like, fighting with them, and then they, like, wake up and they're angry at the person in real life, even though it just happened in a dream, because they, like, can't get it out of their head.
And Eugene's like, Miss... what was her last name?
Carter.
Miss Carter.
Because it's Descartes.
Miss Carter, why are you always so angry at me? I do not understand. And she's like, oh, I don't have to tell you.
This is, by the way, since I've put it on the screen by now, but this is how it's
you spell her name?
Spelt. It's just so you can visualize it. I'll put it on the screen again. Renee Descartes versus Renee Descartes.
Renee Descartes.
Yeah. Not the most subtle of names, but, you know.
It's a cool name.
It is.
I always like
And I like it, like I said, because it connects both to math, because she's like, math will save the world and stuff, but also to the philosophical aspect of faith and I always like my
people from across the pond to have their last name Carter. Just makes them more likable, in my opinion. I'm not sure why. What do you think, Devin?
Couldn't imagine.
You get it? You get it?
Yeah, I do.
My non-subtle reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we should turn over to part 2 then, so we can talk about Mortal Coil part 2.
Bye, guys.
Bye. And here we are back now with episode 212, The Mortal Coil part 2, written by Paul McCusker. Victoria, what happens in part 2?
So, in part 2, Eugene tests out the imagination station without anyone noticing. they realize that he did that when he goes missing for a while, and he's in his dorm by himself. And meanwhile...
Your mic is rubbing on your lapel.
Meanwhile, Jason and Jana are there, and they're kind of like trying to figure out how to cope with everything and deal with it. Jana wants to destroy the Imagination Station, and Jason said, if Whit dies, I'm going to live in Odyssey and I'm going to take over its end. And he also says, and I quote, I don't know, I like Odyssey. I might even live here one day. But I don't think we'll ever see this Jason poser ever again. I don't like him anyway. So.
Drifter, shady.
Yeah. I feel like he has an unhealthy relationship with his business, probably, like his job. I have dust all over my laptop. I don't know where it came from.
Dust.
And then Whit is like in La La Land with Jenny and Jerry. And then in the end he comes out of it and then he's like, I'm thirsty, get me some water, slaves. And then we have like my favorite scene probably ever between Eugene and Connie. And we get all the stuff with Connie talking to Eugene about what he experienced in the Imagination Station adventure, and then the episode ends. Yeah. So, we get some lovely scenes that are later used in The Time Has Come, and we get the, well, Eugene, what are you going to do? The, what, Miss Kendall? What indeed? And also, Connie!
Yeah, so the episode starts out immediately as, because the last one ends with Whit flatlining, so this one starts out with everyone's freaking out and clear and stuff, and does anyone ever find it weird how Dale Jacobs is apparently helping Dr. Morton AED Whit at the beginning of the episode? Because they just put Phil Lawler in there as, like, one of the supporting doctors.
Devin, if we, like, nitpicked every single time Phil Lawler played a random character in Odyssey.
We do, and we will continue to do so. Thank you very much.
Isn't he like that random guy in the episode with Penny where she's starting to like suspect that Wooten's doing something or something? Like the episode where a guy comes in and she's like, "Oh, if Wooten was doing this, he would tell me, wouldn't he? But this," and then she just goes on a rant, and the guy's like, I just wanted to...
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, it's someone who's played a lot of voices. Anyway.
It's honestly creepy to me to think about the fact that Whit's soul seems to have left his body here, and he's like, oh, sorry. He's looking on from the outside. I mean, I know that people have described that experience in the same situation, but the fact that Whit was really, like, that far gone and not just having a dream during his coma is, it's frightening to think about.
There was, like, this movie that we saw one time at church, movie night. That movie scared me. I'm still freaked out by it.
About life after death experiences and stuff.
Yeah, that
people going over the brink and coming back.
And I always thought of that, like, when Whit had his out-of-body experience. I thought of, like, some of the stories they said in it.
Yeah. I really liked how Whit makes a comment about maybe still being in the Imagination Station, and then a minute later, Tom jokes how he thinks that we're all in the Imagination Station still, and I'm like, see, the writing was on the wall the whole time. And it's funny to hear all of this immediately after I listened to Things Not Seen. And then this happened immediately after.
Irony.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Last time, when I was talking about my original theory, you said that it should have been disproved by the fact that Connie barely appears in part 1. So it's like, obviously, this isn't her adventure. But I remember that sometimes the Imagination Station and Whit's inventions, that it's like, you're not necessarily there. It kind of, the story switches perspectives, but it's still your adventure. Into Temptation, when Jimmy goes into the Room of Consequence and he wants to get the Bible game, and it's like he's the one in the Room of Consequence, but the story switches perspectives between everyone in the Barkley household plus Lawrence.
But that's the Room of Consequence.
Whit, well, it's the same technology.
Wait, what I never understood was, I thought it was just like
Whit is like talking to all of these other Barclays, and yet it's supposed to be Jimmy's adventure. So I've always assumed it's kind of like it's like a dream when you're like someone else or someone else is there, and it doesn't make it makes sense to you in the moment. And afterwards, you're like, huh, that was weird. Why did I just accept that? And I feel like it's kind of like Jimmy.
Wait, is that
adventure.
what was happening in that episode?
What do you mean? Is what was happening?
Into Temptation. I've never understood how that episode works.
The way I've always thought about it was it's kind of like Jimmy is Donna and Jimmy is Mary and all these things, but it's like he doesn't realize he just kind of, in that dream kind of way, he's just like, okay, I guess I'm Donna now. Because otherwise,
they never say.
Otherwise, Whit would be interacting with one of his own programs, and what was Jimmy doing since this is his adventure? We don't know. So I always assume Jimmy's kind of like third or first personing through this kind of thing from other people in a way that just it's a dream, so it just makes sense.
And you kind
of go along with it. It's the exact same. Excuse me. It's the exact same technology. The only difference between the Room of Consequence and the Imagination Station is that one is in the past for history, and the other is in the present for future for theoretical.
Okay, if Connie was in a life or death simulation thing for Whit, wouldn't that be more Room of Consequence-y?
True, but isn't the death program in and of itself not very Imagination Station-y? Isn't the death program conceptually, even as it is, more Room of Consequence-y?
Okay, wasn't the Room of Consequence not even a thing yet until the next album?
Yes. So the point is, it would have been Imagination Station either way.
Fine. Maybe, I don't know. Room of Consequence first appeared in Into Temptation, so I don't even think the writers properly knew how it worked at that point, so...
Probably. Anyways,
for all I know, Whit could have been talking to a computer screen, like a monitor, for
the point is,
minutes.
Yeah, the point is the fact that we linked this review with Things Not Seen ended up being funny in retrospect.
That's what I was saying last time.
Yes, you did. So Jason, his voice sounds a little odd here, don't you think? Townsend Coleman must have had a cold or something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to point out Dr. Morton had it backwards there. She's like, oral stimulation can be very helpful in cases like this. Oral stimulation wouldn't be stimulating with your mouths like talking. That would be physically stimulating Whit's mouth, like touching or massaging it. Audio.
Just Jana the whole time she's talking, she's saying the words, but she's moving Whit's mouth in time with what she's saying.
Jana, I love you.
Remember this, Dad?
Jana, I'm so proud of you and all your accomplishments.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, audio stimulation. Audio stimulation would be the correct verbiage here, not oral stimulation. When Eugene has his flashbacks, like you're talking about, and he's crying out, and then Connie leaves her message, and Eugene's just heaving and huffing during it, and then he rasps out, Connie! At the end, I remember thinking it sounded really malicious the first time I heard it. Like, I remember connecting it.
It does sound malicious.
I remember connecting it in my mind to Whit in the Black Veil station and thinking that Eugene had been, like, corrupted and turned violent by the program. Because he
makes sense that you would think that the first time you heard it, because Novacom was the first album we heard.
Yeah, like, so because he sounds really primal in the way that he says it, so it makes it sound like he's just kind of, like turned feral by the program, and then here's Connie, and then he's just kind of I need to go, like, attack.
He's like, she'll be my first victim,
or something. Exactly, yeah. But sounds like he's going to turn into a serial killer.
I know I say this a lot, but it's because I do it a lot. I always picture, like, for lots of lines, what the voice actors are like in the studio when they do it. And I'm just imagining they're like, okay, Will, say this line, say Connie's name. And he says that, and everyone's just like...
Yeah, you mentioned that.
They just press the button, they're like, that's good. Good job. What the heck?
I like how, as Jason and Jana are talking to Whit, Jason's like, did you think this was the only way to get us to visit? Because that would be a likely conclusion. This is the first time you've ever appeared on the show, Jason, and the first time Jana's been on since album 7. I wasn't even born when this episode came out, but it wasn't until this year, 2016, that Jana appeared in an episode again. So yes, I feel like it's fair for Whit to have thought that this was the only way to get them to visit was putting himself in a coma. So Whit...
Your friends are loud.
Whit, in his mindscape, he sees Jenny, he sees Jerry, he starts getting really choked up, and then I start getting really choked up while I'm on the bus listening to Whit get choked up.
I was at work when I was listening to this, and he was like, come here, both of you, and I was like, oh. Because you have all those feels, because Hal's wife just passed away, and you're thinking, like, what would have been going through his head? And it's really sad.
Yeah. Like you pointed out last episode and earlier this episode, Jason makes a little point about how he might move to Odyssey one day. Maybe throw it out there. I assume that was
Jason
Paul.
again?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I assume that Paul was trying to leave things open to set that up, though I'm guessing it wasn't in anticipation of Hal passing away, despite the original intention of this episode. It happened either way.
When Hal actually passes away, they're like, gosh darn it, we already used that episode.
Like you said last time as well, and this time as well again, the scene with Connie and Eugene talking about his experience in the station is absolutely amazing. One of the best interactions they ever have in the show. It's just really raw and genuine, and was one of the biggest catalysts ever in Eugene's long walk towards faith. And it was directly followed up on in Best Intentions, and Thy Kingdom Come, and Thy Will Be Done. And it's honestly crazy to think that they literally let Eugene go to hell in an episode. Like, if you actually think about that for a kid's show, like, it's like, wow, they did that. They got away with that. Wild.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I can't remember. That's annoying.
In typical Whittaker fashion, I like how Whit's first response to waking up from a 24-hour coma is, man, when are they gonna let me out of this hospital so I can keep doing incredibly dangerous things in my old age? It's like, oh,
and
Whit.
Dr. Martin's like, I will tie you down to the bed if I need to.
I feel like in the next episode in Best Intentions, when they're like, no, Whit, you need to stay in bed, Doc Morton and stuff, and she comes, she's like, it's fine. I feel like it's less of like, you guys are being too restrictive on my orders, as much as she's like, I don't even try anymore at this point.
I give up.
There's no point.
Whittakers.
There's no point in trying to restrict him.
He's gonna do what he wants anyway. It's like, parents, when they have that reasoning, like, might as well let you drink at home because at least you're not out drinking with at the bar. Like, that's what it's like to deal with Whit when he's at the hospital.
Yeah.
Then you know I'm right.
It's a good comparison.
Yeah.
I also like how they capped this episode with just the 2-line epilogue of Connie and Eugene talking to remind people that it happened, and also to reassure them that it will play into future events. It's not just like, oh, we'll sweep that under the rug now.
It's like such a perfect ending for the episode, though, in my opinion.
And it leads so well into the coming episodes and addressing that part of it in more detail.
Mm-hmm. And you listen to The Time Has Come right after this episode, and it's just so great. And yeah, like I said earlier, I guess not in this episode, earlier today, because we're recording a lot of stuff today. I listened to Second House on the Left.
Fifth House on the Left.
Yeah, Fifth House on the Left. I got the number wrong. That's the whole point.
It's kind of important, yeah.
Yeah, and at the
end,
it's
a really weird story,
like,
really weird plot structure
Bye,
for this
Eugene,
road trip.
don't forget about us. And I was sitting there as, well, I was going to say an impartial listener, but that's not true. And I was like, oh, he totally does forget about you, because he never visits you guys ever again. And then I realized he wrote all that stuff in his journal, because when you listen to The Time Has Come, then he has that part with Kelsey in it when she's doing like her big speech about how you survive and stuff.
The facade.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, so
I always
he
forget
never
to
did forget, even though it might seem like it.
I always forget to think that all of those clips by necessity are things that came from Eugene's journal.
I don't.
I don't think I'd ever thought about it that way before.
He's very meticulous with his records.
He is. It paid off very well for him when it came to the Eugene Returns trilogy.
And I guess he wrote like a journal right before he went in, because it had that scene that afternoon with Jack.
Yeah, he was very up to the
Do you
moment.
think he writes it like a book, like dialogue?
I guess so. Or it's also because remember the imagination station is also playing off of his memories and his own influence as well.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true. He's like, Jack made me sad, so now I'm here. And that's an entire journal entry.
Yeah, maybe he just actually has like a mic that's on all the time with him and it's just actively, constantly transcribing everything that he hears into his journal.
Audio journal. I can't rule it out.
No,
Have
you
no
can't.
evidence against it.
The show does like to do things with audio sometimes. On occasion.
It's almost like it's an audio. So. Spit all over your monitor. Just bleh.
Ma.
Anything else you want to say?
Nothing in particular.
The scene between Connie and Eugene is just so good.
I really like the way that Connie like walks through everything that happened for Eugene's sake.
Mm-hmm,
like as you okay, I want to say first off, the way that Eugene describes his experience is maybe my favorite depiction of hell ever in any piece of media. I think it captures it phenomenally. Because, I mean, obviously the most stereotypical image is like underground cave, stalactites, stalagmites, lava, fire, or
Okay, let me think
brimstone.
of what he says. I was alone, Connie, completely and utterly alone.
In a
Just
burning
a
void.
pit of black.
In a burning void of blackness, and I've had nothing
Yeah.
but nightmares ever since.
I love that quote so much. There's
Yeah,
so many good quotes in this episode.
It's described so well because, like I said, people just think of it as like, oh, it's really hot and fiery in a cave underground. And I always find it interesting the culture around the way that non-believers think of hell, especially when they're like, I mean, hey, you know, it's like they're putting all of these people who love debauchery and hedonism together in one spot. Sounds like a party to me, kind of thing. And I mean, I realize that people are joking in and of that, but I find it interesting the perception that people have, even removing the idea of like, oh, pain and torture and stuff like that, but the idea of like togetherness, like all the people in hell being all together. And
yeah, plus there's that like very popular saying that you hear a lot, like, I'll see you in hell.
Yeah, that kind of like, we'll all be commiserating in our pain together. And I really like this depiction because it strips away like all like kind of the weird traditional ideas around it in terms of physical representation and pins it out for what it really is at its core is separation from God eternally. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, while heaven is like eternal, perfect connection to God, even when we're here on earth, regardless of whether you're a believer or not, you know, we all are still living in a world where we have some level of connection to God, and He's still looking over us and still presiding over this world, regardless of the level of influence or connection that we have with Him. But hell, or really just anything that isn't heaven in the afterlife, is just complete, utter separation from God, which, like Eugene says, is, you know, it's utterly alone, not like I'm off by myself somewhere, but like I'm truly and deeply alone, separated from anything and everything that has ever been. Like, not just alone from the people around him, but like alone from himself and separated from everything, complete psychological and physical isolation, which is a really real and raw and genuine and terrifying way to describe it.
Do they say how much time has passed? Like, how long was he by himself? He didn't come into work and he didn't talk to anyone for like a couple days or something like that.
It must have been less than a day because Whit was only in a coma for 24 hours.
Yeah, so I think like a day and a half, and then Connie.
Well, it must have been less than a day because Whit was still in this coma when she finds him.
Yeah.
So it's probably he's probably been alone for like maybe somewhere between 12 and 18 hours, I would guess.
I feel so bad for Eugene.
As I was gonna say.
Finish.
Before that, I love that, and then I love the way that Connie talks to him about it. Like when he describes it, she isn't like, well, we went to hell. That's what happened. you're a filthy non-believer, and that's what happened to you. Like, and she doesn't. I mean, obviously she doesn't say it like that, but beyond not being blunt about it, it's not just about sensitivity, but she like walks through the explanation in a way that really softens it and explains it in a way it doesn't sound like harsh or horrifying or anything, but like explains it in a contrast to Whit's experiences in a way that's just really well put. And I really like the way that she kind of like built up to it in a way that makes it seem more rational than it would otherwise seem really ridiculous and terrifying and awful otherwise.
I feel like Connie is probably the best person who could have talked through this with Eugene next to Whit, and Whit obviously wasn't available at the moment.
Yeah.
But, like, I love how gentle Connie is through the whole scene.
Yeah.
Like, we all know that Connie's not the most subtle character. So, and then she has this beautiful scene where she's just, like, really calm, and she's there for him, and...
It's really maternal, and I really like it.
Yeah, and you can just see that I don't care that Penny and Connie are roommates. Eugene's always going to be Connie's best friend, even if they haven't had as many episodes lately.
Also, in the way that she describes it, I really like how she keeps on, like, I guess, using, like, soft theoreticals, kind of. Like, she's prefacing things with maybe, which, I mean, even though she's, it's basically certain that the things she's describing are what happened, but she still puts the maybe there just to kind of, like, soften things for Eugene, so it doesn't sound like she's coming in and being like, this is what happened to you, this is what happened to Whit, I'm here with all of the answers. She's saying, this is what we know, but here's...
taste of heaven, maybe you had a tiny taste of hell.
Saying if and maybe, and just trying to be like, here's what I think I'm not telling you what happened because I know more than you, but I am offering you my opinions and observations, and let's take this and walk through this together.
Mm-hmm. There's, like, such an easy joke in that scene, too, but I can never bring myself to make it.
What?
Because it would just totally ruin the moment. Like, when Connie says that to him, and then he said, well, then you better explain it to me in detail. My brain's always like, yeah, because that's the only way you'll ever understand it. And I'm like, no. Not the time for this right now.
Back for sure.
Yeah. I have this thing for whenever Eugene says people's first names, and I just love it.
What, you mean like when you rasped out, Connie?
Yeah, not that.
Victoria's like,
but,
oh.
Like, I just love it when he says people's first names, like, when he's, because you can tell, like, that's when he's feeling especially close to the person.
Mm-hmm.
And
it means a lot more.
Yeah, because he always kind of distances himself from people.
Yeah.
And especially like early on, I wouldn't say like now when you call someone like Miss Kendall, he's not distancing himself from Connie.
No. But at the beginning, he's like, oh, calling Whit is so informal.
Yeah. Now he calls him Whit sometimes, and I think he uses the two first names he uses the most. Whit doesn't count, like, when he's saying, like, Whit's End or something like that, or he's, like, introducing someone to Whit, or saying, like, oh, they
Connie
call him
Katrina.
Whit. Like, I'm talking about when he's talking, like, one-on-one with a person.
Katrina.
Okay, I didn't think of Katrina. Yeah, Katrina.
Well, yeah, why would you think of his wife?
Be quiet. I was thinking friends-wise. Katrina doesn't count for this. I'm talking about his friends. Well, he is friends with Katrina, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So I think Connie is the number one person he uses the first name of the most, and number two would probably be Bernard.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and I think... Okay, I'm trying to think of the first time he called her Connie. I think it might have been when they were first introduced. But I don't know if that one counts.
I don't know.
But I feel like the first time he's ever called her Connie in like a really concentrated amount of time is definitely this episode. Yeah,
there might be other scattered ones around because sometimes the writers just forget about stuff like that and it happens. Like the weird occasional times when kids refer to Whit as Whit.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, like, sometimes when characters like Erica do it, I feel like it's on purpose.
Maybe.
Because she's just telling people about Whit's End. She's like, oh yeah, there's this guy here named Whit.
But, yeah. But I mean, like, in Novacom is the first thing that comes to my mind. Like, it's like Mandy or someone is telling them, she's like, yeah, we'll go talk to Whit about it. And it kind of catches my ear a bit sometimes.
I would be surprised if the kids have never slipped up and called him Whit. Or it could be that thing where, like, you call him Whit among your friends, but in person you call him Mr. Whitaker. Because my friends and I do that so much with our teachers.
It's like old lady
like
Gregory
we have
or
this
whatever.
teacher here who I know named Mr. Leffler, and everyone calls him Leff, except for when we're talking to him, we call him Mr. Leffler. I found out a funny story, though.
It's like old lady Daniels and Over the Garden Wall. Don't call me old lady.
Yes, sir, young man. A kid in my bio class always called my teacher Leff in front of their parent. And then when their parent went to the interviews, they were like, "Hey, Leff," and Mr. Leffler was like, "It was the first time my parents ever called me that before, and it was weird." It's really funny.
That's funny.
Yeah. But, yeah, I could see the kids totally slipping up and calling him Whit.
Yeah, it's fair.
I think it makes sense. Anyway, back to this episode. I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to say. Oh, yeah, I love my other favorite quote next to all the Eugene and Connie ones is Jerry's quote about the window glass.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously is just quoting from 1 Corinthians 13, but expands.
Quote. I love that part. I love that part so much.
I love how they did it, where they're like, did you hear that?
Yeah, what was that?
Something really loud fell in the living room, and I was like,
okay.
Because the wall's like an inch thick, so it sounded like something fell off the back of my desk or something.
I thought you, like, kicked your desk.
They make it clear in the episode that it's like, this is not the afterlife or any, like, facsimile of the afterlife. This is in Whit's head that's going on. This is his brain creating these things. And, I mean, Jen even makes it explicitly clear when she's like, I can't tell you anything you don't already know.
Oh, yeah, I want to ask you about
makes
that.
you know for sure that this Jenny is inside his head, that it's not actually, like, Jenny's soul come down from heaven into purgatory.
Well, that answers that question.
Yeah. So, I do like the way they portrayed it, and they're like, here's these beautiful things, it's wonderful, it's like heaven, but they also make it clear this isn't heaven, and this isn't actually what heaven's actually like. No eye has seen or eye heard what God has had stored for people, all that verse. So, it's good. I like it.
Your friends are loud.
Yeah.
Anyway, is there anything else you want to say?
I don't think so. 5 out of 5. Again, obviously for the 2 together for everything that we said, because it's phenomenal. It's really dramatic, really emotional. We get to hear from everyone in Whit's family. Jason for the first time. And I guess Jerry for the first time as well. I think.
This is like the only episode we get of, like, until album 60 of modern day Jason and Jana, like, talking to each other.
That's true.
And I love how they bicker so much.
Yeah, like, they play off each other so well.
I love how Jason is reminiscing, because whenever Jason gets really emotionally starts reminiscing, which is something you kind of pick
like
up on
that
his character.
in the episode. And as Jason
and Jana's like being super dramatic. He's like, I wonder if he still has that chair.
As they were talking to each other, I was thinking a lot about all the things that you said in our review of Between the Lines about the way that they interact with each other, and just really appreciated it more than before.
Because of me?
Yeah, because of you and Between the Lines and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in more detail later on, so thinking about it more specifically. But yeah, that and all the stuff with Eugene and Connie, their conversations, depictions of hell and of heaven, and the way that they handled it, and how we should feel about it. And just all of the scenes with Tom and Whit, oh my goodness, all of the scenes with them talking to each other. And Tom basically addressing it to Whit in the terms of almost like, I think technological suicide is how I described it at some point, where he's like, death is,
thanks a lot, Mildred.
It's the doorway to all these beautiful things, but it's not a door we're supposed to go through until God and God alone opens it for us. It's not a door we're supposed to open ourselves. And so they kind of second-handedly address that in a way that
also,
it sort
I think
of was
this was like the first
willing
big
himself
episode
to die.
we got a warning about.
I think so.
And the first time Chris didn't do the opening and
Yeah.
closing.
And then, yeah, just all the stuff with Connie and Eugene, and the fact that that was an enormous catalyst into his, slow climb, his slow burning climb to coming to faith.
Hey, I just made a connection.
What?
I'll tell you in a minute. I want to ask you my first question
Okay.
first. I think I forgot what it was. Darn it.
That's the second thing.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you think that's like the reason Eugene became a Christian? Because he got like a very, very strong reminder of his time in the Life After Death program?
You mean the strong
Like
reminder
here,
in the time has come?
pretend we have a chart. We have a chart right here.
Yeah.
So we have Eugene. I might have to do this, but whatever. I'm gonna go this way. So we have Eugene.
You want to bring your hand in
like,
more because the iMovie's gonna cut off like the third edges.
So we have Eugene, and this is like his friend level, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So we have Eugene, and he starts kind of like here-ish in Odyssey because he knows some people at the college, and then it just steadily goes up, and then we have this episode where he feels like completely alone, and then it goes like back up here, and then gradually leading up to the time has come, it just starts going down again.
Yeah.
Because he loses
Katrina
Whit
and Whit's End
and Katrina and Jack, Whit's End, everybody, and it probably really strongly reminded him of the program.
I mean, I think it was a contributing factor because it really made it's one of the big things that caused him to really seriously think about faith and stuff like that, but I wouldn't count it as this enormous thing more so than the follow-up spiritual conversations that came from it, or the stuff in Back to Bethlehem, or really I think it's more about his relationship with Whit and with Katrina, and how that ties into his abandonment issues, his history with his parents and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Lots of the time people say like Christianity is like going up to a beach and then you just gotta like walk in stuff. You don't know if what's gonna happen. You just have to have faith you're not gonna drown. I've heard that analogy before.
Oh, I've ever heard
because like the waves can be crazy or whatever. I don't know, but I feel like if that analogy was set to Eugene, it would be like he's standing at the edge of a beach and kind of like the waves are just like going in and out, kind of like touching his feet and stuff. And then he's just standing there for 16 albums, and all of a sudden, like, someone just gets, like, a bucket of water and just, like, throws it on him.
Just ice bucket challenges him.
Yeah, basically. And then he just keeps on standing there, and then he eventually goes in.
Well, I mean, I guess if we want to go with Katrina's vaccination analogy and the turning point, it's more like he's standing there and letting the waves lap at his feet for so long that he's finally adjusted himself to the temperature of the water, and now he can't even really feel the effects of the water anymore on him.
Yeah. It's like you're immune against it.
That's weird. We'll get there one day. So many things to do one day. Why does this show have so many episodes? We can't review them all. But we'll try.
I would just look up and your hands are like this.
Yeah.
Story of my life. I still can't remember what that other thing was that I was gonna say. I know I said, oh, that reminds me at one point when you were talking about everything, and then that was it. So.
Who knows?
Yeah, I can't remember what it is.
I'm sure it'll come to you eventually long after we've finished recording.
Yeah, I know. That's what's making me mad. You talk for a bit.
I think that's all that I have to say. I gave my rating. You gave your rating, I think. I don't think I have any more opinions. I've summed up my thoughts on it. It's all fantastic.
Oh, I remembered it.
There you go.
So, I never got to finish when I was talking about Jason before, about how he, like, has a strong tendency to reminisce when he's feeling super emotional and, like, he's about to lose someone. So the best two examples I can think of are this, when he starts, like, rambling about, like, couches and stuff like that in this. And then also in, was it Life Expectancy? I think it was. When, like, so, like, June dies, and then Jason goes and talks to Whit, and then he starts like asking
Oh, when he
little...
says, "Can we talk about Jerry and Mom and stuff?"
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Life Expectancy Part 2, I think.
Yeah. And so it's that same kind of deal. So if Jason ever starts like strongly reminiscing about things, we know that he's very upset.
I also, it's not for this review, but I realized when we're doing things not seen, I totally forgot. 2 reviews ago, we were talking about the good soil, and we're talking about examples of episodes where it's like, you do something and you think that you have no effect, and then it turns out after the fact you did have a big effect. And then the
like
next
a Glass
episode...
Darkly?
No, we mentioned that, and we mentioned a few examples, but the very next episode we talked about Telemachus and Attack at the Arena, and that's a great example of that. Telemachus, when he died in the arena, he ended up stopping all gladiator fights forever. Mm-hmm. That was the next episode we did, and I forgot to mention it then. So yeah, retroactively add that to last episode. So Mortal Coil, I think
Book of Martyrs. Hey, turns out he didn't actually die. We made a mistake, guys. Sorry about that.
Clickbaiting fox. That's what they call him. I don't know what his first name is. That's all I have to say about the Mortal Coil.
I feel like I said the majority of my comments in the last episode.
Basically, every episode that this show does concerning death is one of my favorites. I mean, Life Expectancy.
What about Where Is Thy Sting?
The Mortal Coil, Where's Thy Sting, A Touch of Healing, Karen. They're all so good. Recollections, sort of.
They are all really good.
Yeah.
Where's Thy Sting?
Oh,
it's
God,
such an
No Greater Love.
Episode. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on No Greater Love.
I can't wait to review that.
Oh, and PD. I love PD's character. I wish he was
so sad.
Is it like the letters P and D? Or is it like PD?
I believe it's the letters PD.
Okay. I wish he was in more episodes. I wish he got a job at the Timothy Center. That would have been pretty great. What do you think?
That would have been good. I like that idea.
Yeah. Just headcanon that he went on to get a job at the Timothy Center.
It was a great addition in terms of like the consistent characterization of Tom's difficulty in forgiving people and forgiving him, including himself. Like his trouble with forgiving Richard Maxwell in Homecoming and Darkness Before Dawn, forgiving himself in PD and No Greater Love, stuff like that. Whit when it comes to Agnes-related matters in Novacom. Yeah, it was good. So, is that everything you have to say about Mortal Coil?
I'm really glad that Eugene and Katrina didn't leave Odyssey. I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I've been listening to so many Eugene episodes.
In a New Era?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very relevant to the Mortal Coil.
Yep.
Alright, so what are we doing next time, Victoria? Something we recorded a while back?
I don't know. Let me go check what time it is. We are going to be doing...
Oh.
Let me check my pocket watch.
Oh, I should have known this was just a plug. This is just a plug for your new swag.
It is? No, I was actually making a joke about
Well, I know, but I
keep on forgetting that I have a pocket watch.
You're connecting it together, though. Anyways, what are we doing next time, Victoria, in jokes aside? Next time,
we're doing a movie! We're making the Adventures in Oddcast movie. I hope you guys like it. No,
yeah!
We're going to do our first ever video.
Kickstarter! Oh, wait, give us money.
Because we've never done a video of this podcast before.
Yeah.
Including this one.
We should do an audio podcast one day, and it'll just be like one of those ones where we insert a whole bunch of memes, except no one can see any of them.
Yeah, we should do that.
So, what are we doing next time?
It'll be the easiest job you've ever had.
It will be. What are we doing?
We're going to be doing Fine Feathered Frenzy, which is the third Adventures in Odyssey movie review, and I'm excited to see it because I haven't seen it. Yeah, I'm not talking about the movie. I'm talking about our episode because we filmed it quite a while ago.
Like a couple months ago.
I have not seen it
This
Sick.
was the one where we dropped frames like 4 times during the recording, so
Oh, I
let's-
forgot about that.
I forgot about it until like yesterday, so let's see how good Devin is at editing every all to sync together.
Yeah. So once you do the episode, send it to me.
I will.
Because I like watching our movie reviews. They make me laugh.
I enjoy them as well.
So who knows? Will we enjoy the episode? Will we not? We enjoyed the first episode somewhat. We did not enjoy the second episode at all, so it's anyone's guess whether we enjoyed the third.
Alright, so until then, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner. And you've been watching The Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye, guys.
Bye.